Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller, and I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Have you ever caught yourself feeling guilty for being happy? Maybe you landed your dream job while your friend didn't. Maybe you smiled after losing someone you loved because you thought of them. Or maybe you started healing after something difficult, burnout, a bad relationship, a bad career, or a bad job that you left. And someone else thought you should still be angry or exhausted. They thought you should still be hanging on to it. But my other question is, who decides that suffering is the admission price for caring? Somewhere along the way, I think many of us learned that if we really care, we have to carry the pain a lot longer than necessary. And I'm not sure where we learned it, and I'm not sure why we learned it, but I think it's maybe just human nature and the fact that we relate to other people. And we connect with other people, and we value their feelings, and sometimes we want to always help them, and we want to help feel the way we think they think. Let's try that again. We want to feel the way we think that they think we should feel for any given amount of time. And, a lot of times I think, and this is especially true in the fire service, guys, this might be really a core message for first responders and firefighters. And if it is, I promise I'll relate it back to the general population and everyone, but I think it can hit home for a lot of people in that line of work because a lot of times we wear suffering like a medal. I think there's lots of groups of people, whether it's career-specific, friend-specific, it doesn't necessarily pertain to any one singular group. I think it's pretty broad sweeping. Firefighters bragging about never sleeping. Leaders believe they always have to sacrifice themselves and always talk about how they're doing things and never take one moment for themselves. Parents feel guilty for taking time for themselves. Employees believe burnout proves that they are super dedicated to their job and they should get the next promotion. And, on the parent side, too, you guys, parent guilt is huge. And a lot of times, and I know I've been guilty of this in the past, too. Like if my kids say, hey, do you want to do X, Y, and Z? Sometimes I'm like, yeah, of course I do, because you're my kids and I want to go out there and be active and have fun with you, even though sometimes I'm like, I would really just like to maybe hang out and sit down for a half an hour. But we do this over and over again. And then somewhere along the lines, we kind of got to the point where we believe that this is what we're supposed to do because we think, oh, well, I'm not exhausted. Maybe I'm not working hard enough. Oh, I shouldn't say no to that. I shouldn't ask for time to sit down and rest. I really haven't done much today. These are all these things that kind of creep into our mind. And I know for a fact I have sat down before to take a rest and take a break. And, first of all, real quick caveat. I am tremendously better at this now than I used to be. But if you talked to me 5 or 6 years ago and said, when was the last time you sat down for an hour and just did nothing, just to do nothing, sat and listened to the birds or looked out at your yard or watched your garden or watched the clouds go by or just sat with a cup of iced coffee or a cup of hot coffee and hung out and enjoyed the stillness and the quiet, I would tell you, well, I can't sit down for an hour. That's so lazy. I would sit down and I would last about 4.5 minutes, and then my brain would go into overdrive of all the things I thought I was supposed to do. I could be mowing the lawn. I could be splitting firewood. I could be weeding the garden. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. I could be moving the garbage pails, washing the vehicles. Like the list was endless. And that would cause me to literally just get up and go back to doing something and keeping myself busy because I thought that I didn't need to rest. I didn't need to sit down because that was a waste of time. All these things over and over in this endless loop in my brain that never actually let me realize that I am allowed to be human and say that it will be nice to sit and rest and relax for a little while and just like do nothing. And I think sometimes we also think, well, if I move on too quickly from something difficult, people will think I didn't care. And that's another really dangerous belief because no one gets to dictate how long it takes you to feel a certain way about something. When something awful happens and something bad happens or something sad happens or something really good or something really positive or something really joyous, nobody but you gets to decide how long you should be allowed to sit in that emotion. Now, my advice here is that if it's something bad or negative or difficult, don't sit in it any longer than you have to. Feel it and experience it and let your brain work through it and let your heart work through it and let your emotions have their day. Do not deny yourself the chance for your emotions to have their day. But once you've done that, and once you've gone through it, and once you feel like you've felt the things you're going to feel, and that you've worked through it in your brain and in your heart and your soul, then allow yourself to move on. Give yourself permission to move on and pick up and keep going. Don't stay there for a certain period of time. And I think a lot of times we look to other people with this, especially people we're connected to, and we think, well, they're still upset and they're still grieving, so I should still be grieving too. I can't move on all of a sudden and be okay with this, because what if the other person is not okay yet? Does that make me a bad friend, a bad spouse, a bad partner, a bad best friend, parent, sibling, whatever the case may be? I think a lot of times we assign ourselves a time limit based, or not even a limit, but a duration of time that we're supposed to feel certain things based on the way other people feel. And that's so dangerous and so tough, because no two people are alike. Or, I mean, yes, people can be alike, but no two people are exactly the same in how they feel things and process things and move through things. And everybody gets to do it within their own time. And we can be sensitive to how other people are feeling. We can be sensitive to the fact that they might not have moved on yet. But we can also say that we can move on in our own time, and we don't owe that suffering to other people. We don't owe it to anybody. Not your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your step-siblings, your half-siblings, your college roommate, your best friend, your coworkers. And in the fire service too, we think that we owe our suffering to the job, or we owe it to the old salty firefighters that we idolized growing up because they had it much worse than we did, and they never quit, and all this kind of stuff. And we hang this medal and we hang this badge of honor on exhaustion and just beating the living daylights out of ourselves and our own personal wellness, all for the sake of what? For the sake of bragging rights? I know some amazing people, both in the fire service and as well as just other jobs and other walks of life, that are amazing leaders. They are amazing at their jobs. They are amazing performers. They have incredible stamina. They are incredible athletes. But they are not standing here at the edge of a cliff and saying, if I get just one more ounce of tired or worn out, I'm going headlong over the cliff. They don't stand there and walk that line and live that dangerously for their entire lives. They understand that rest and recovery are good things. Taking the time to let your mind reset and taking the time to process through difficult things will make you a better leader, a better employee, a better parent, a better spouse, a better best friend, a better caregiver, all those things. You can serve your job and your friends and your purpose in life the best when you feel good. And I know that sounds like common sense, but so many of us, I think, we feel like we have to push and push and push until we have so little left that we're like, no, well, I have to take a break now, otherwise I'm going to end up dead. But when you do that, and when you live in that constant state of worn out, and that constant state of suffering, and that constant state of, oh my God, I can't take this anymore, you don't bring your best to anybody. You bring them very little, as a matter of fact, because you're living so scarcely and you can't replenish yourself at all, that what you bring to the table is just this minuscule amount. And this gets exponentially worse the more thin you spread yourself. So if you have lots of commitments and you do this over and over, you are bringing lots of different commitments, the littlest, tiniest sliver of yourself and your potential, and you aren't actually bringing them the full version of yourself. And that doesn't mean that you don't care, and that doesn't mean that you don't like the other people that you're working with. It just means that you don't have enough to give them because you've given it all away to other people. And this idea of, well, we have to suffer because other people think we should, or because other people still are, or because other people did before us, I want you to really convince yourself that that's not necessary, and also it's not good for you. And here, I want to make this distinction too before we go too much further. So the distinction comes with, there is a difference between pain and staying there. Look, guys, I know through and through, and with all blunt, brutal honesty about life, that life includes grief, disappointment, difficult conversations, failure, heartbreak, sacrifice, old jobs, new jobs, quitting a job, sometimes being fired or let go, trying a new relationship and having it fail, not feeling good as a parent, lots of things. Countless things in our life will pop up to remind us just how quickly life can bring us some pain if we're not paying attention. Now, none of these are optional. We don't get to say, okay, here's my life. I'm going to make this Venn diagram with my big circles, and I'm okay with new jobs and old jobs, and I'm okay with disappointment, but I don't ever want heartbreak, failure, or sacrifice. I don't want those. Keep those off my Venn diagram. Get them off my spreadsheet, right? We don't get to live like that. They are not optional. But living there in those things is a choice. That is optional. You don't have to stay there forever. You don't have to stay and say, I have to stay here because this is just what we're supposed to do. Healing, please hear me when I say this. Healing isn't disrespectful. Joy does not erase love, and peace doesn't mean you didn't care. It just means you're moving forward. And moving forward doesn't invalidate your past. Just because you have found the tools and the emotional tools to move forward through something difficult, even if it's extremely difficult, it doesn't erase that part of your past. It doesn't mean that didn't happen. It doesn't invalidate that. It means that you are learning to live in the forward momentum era and learning to live forward with progress and purpose and being able to move your life in a direction that doesn't consist of you just sitting and wallowing in that pain or that heartache or that suffering forever. And you don't owe that misery to other people. I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think sometimes we feel obligated to stay upset or stay angry or stay frustrated or feel hurt or heartbroken, not because people necessarily asked us to, but because we assume that they expect it. And, as a parent, a lot of times I think our kids look up to us for so many things without us even knowing and without us even realizing it. And one of the things that we have to be really careful not to teach them is that it's our quote-unquote job or duty to sit and stay in these bad moods and this pain and this suffering forever. If you have a disagreement with your kiddo or you guys have a fight or you have to discipline them, make sure they know that you can have that happen and that you can move on from that and that you two still love each other and you still love them as a kid and that you are still proud of them. And when that moment has had its moment, so to speak, then you can move on. Don't hand down this generational idea that we have to stay in this suffering moment to the little people in your life because they look to us for so many cues and so many, emotional cues and emotional lessons along the way. It's really easy if we're not paying attention to have them watch us sit and be upset about stuff for a really long time. And also, when I talk about this, please remember too, it's okay to have big conversations with your little people. And I have a rule in my house. I do not lie to my kids. I said I since they were babies, I said I will not lie to you. I may give them the age appropriate version of the truth, but I will not lie to them. The first time they ever asked what happens to the cows at the farm when they get picked up by my friend Aaron, it took a while. But first they didn't ask. They were like, they just buy cows, see you later. And then one day they asked what was going to happen to them. And I told them, and they cried and they had their moment and they got upset. And my son and daughter, they were little. I think my son was like maybe 6 and my daughter was 8. And they cried and they were so sad and so upset and they were borderline inconsolable because how on earth our cows are going to they have to die now. But we had a conversation about it. I told them it was okay to cry, get their feelings out, that I loved that they loved animals and they cared about our animals so much. And then once that moment had passed, in the morning, when the morning rolled around, I remember asking my daughter, I'm like, are you still mad at me for the conversation about the cows? And she was like, yep. And I said, okay, that's okay. And I said, but you let me know when you're not mad at me anymore, okay? And she said, okay. And about an hour later, she said, Daddy, I'm not mad at you anymore. She said, I'm still sad, though. And I said, that's okay. So being sad is okay. So each portion and each part of that in her brain had a place that it needed to occupy. She needed to be sad about the cows and then angry about me. And then also she needed to be just upset in general and feel the big feelings that an 8-year-old feels about something as big as that and as heavy as that. And so she did, but then she moved on. And then we had a conversation about like why she was feeling better. And I was like, that's good. It's good to move on. Like, it's really mature and really great that you took that and processed it and felt it and sat with it. And you felt the way you needed to, but now you know that it's okay to move on and talk about other things and be happy about other things. And you don't have to be sad just because you think that's what everybody else expects. And I think society does this too, not just with kids, with people. We kind of look, oh my God, I remember a friend of mine in college, he was in this long-term relationship and he broke up with this girl. And all of us were like, we were cheering for him because we didn't necessarily like his other half. She did not want him to be himself at all. She wanted him to be this little tiny, quiet, reserved version of him that she knit into this little box in her mind, and she wanted him to stay there and just be exactly and only what she wanted. And so we were all like, oh my God, and we heard you broke up, like, we're here for you, we're sorry. But we had to remind him, like, hey, it's okay if you're over this. And we could tell he was over it because we knew he was unhappy for a really long time. But he felt like he had to be upset. He's like, well, we were together for a long time. I'm like, okay, I get that. I understand that. And I hear you and I feel you. But if you are telling me that you are able to move on already because you're feeling better about your life and better about the person you are and the chances you have to be the actual individual version of you, you don't have to stay upset just because she's not over it yet. And I think that's the give and take that we fall into a lot of times is we look and we're like, well, is the other person okay yet? Because if they're not okay, then maybe I shouldn't be okay. Like, is something wrong with me if I move on quickly? No, there's nothing wrong with you. Everybody processes things in different amounts of time. Everybody has different coping skills. And some of the most beautiful people I know in this world are the ones who have been through it. They have been through loss, and they have been through death, and they have been through difficult things and loss of friendships. And they are such beautiful people who are so emotionally strong and so emotionally resilient and emotionally intelligent. And I look up to them and I admire them, but they have had no shortage of loss in their life or no shortage of difficulty or suffering or pain, but they don't let that define them. They are happy and beautiful and functioning people who just live beautiful lives and are such great friends and great people to know. And I'm so thankful to know them. But they don't let what has happened to them in the past define who they are going forward. And I think that's a really important line to draw and a really important lesson to learn. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to keep carrying the pain and letting it go, because letting it go would betray the other person or betray the situation. But that's not true. Nobody deserves your misery, and no situation deserves your misery or your continual upset for, an indefinite amount of time. You are allowed to live a happy life even if bad things happen to you. And it's really important to do that. Because, gosh, how awful would it be as soon as one bad thing happened to you, you just stayed in that mood until the next bad thing happened to you. Imagine, and some people, unfortunately, they do that. They look for the next bad, awful thing to happen so that can define their new mood. Well, I got fired from my job, so I'm going to be miserable and angry about this and hate the company. Oh, woe is me. I hate it. And then they ride out that emotional storm, and they stay right there until they get a new job. And they're like, okay, I get a new job, and now I hate my boss. And then they ride the I hate my boss train for a while. And then they're like, well, I got a new boss, and I like the boss, and they're just about to get happy. But then they look for something else. Like, well, my girlfriend broke up with me, and so now I'm going to be miserable about that. And I can't be happy ever again because I'll never find love again. And then they find a new love interest, and things are going good, and they start to get happy again. And they're like, oh, my car broke down and needs $2,000 worth of work. And they go from bad thing to bad thing and misery to misery, and they just live at that plane, and they never rise above it. The chart never ticks up any higher than that status quo of anger and suffering and misery, and that's so sad and not good for you and not okay. And I want to convince you with everything I have to not do that, to look outside the misery, look outside the pain, look outside the suffering, find new things to do, new things to focus on that make you happy and that make you feel good. Because, you guys, happiness is not betrayal. Happiness and being happy is not a betrayal of our friends, of our feelings, or of the situation. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is if I become happy, I'm forgetting where I came from. Right? Think about that. How many times have you started to say that, or maybe kept saying that in your brain? Well, if I end up happy, I'm gonna forget all about this, and I can't forget where I came from. I can't forget how difficult it was, or I can't forget how bad I used to have it. I get it. I understand it. You can remember your struggles without living inside them forever. You can honor your difficult seasons without rebuilding your house and leaving it right in the middle of them. Don't build your house in a place where joy can't find it. And also, speaking of joy, I want you to choose joy without apology. Pursue the things in your life that make you happy and make you smile. And take all those things that leave you feeling drained and angry and frustrated and depleted and get rid of them the best you can. I know we can't get rid of them all. I know sometimes we have a job that we don't necessarily love. But it's okay to pursue other things that make you really happy, in addition to going to the job that you're not necessarily crazy about. And you can choose that joy, and choose what makes you happy, and choose to do what you love, and you don't have to apologize to anybody for it. And listen, this is not a comprehensive list of everything, but think of the things outside of your quote-unquote day-to-day responsibilities, paying the bills, going to work, that might make you happy, and might make you excited. And with those things, with joy, right, when we choose joy unapologetically, there are some things that you can pursue that bring you life instead of misery and suffering. Maybe you love to coach Little League. Maybe you love farming or reading or traveling and taking vacations. Maybe you love meeting new people, and your goal is to go meet as many new parents at the school as you can every year. Maybe you like to change careers and start a new job because you think that's exciting. Maybe you just love to laugh. You love to go to comedy shows. You love to watch silly movies. Resting is definitely something that I promise will bring life to your day and life to your life, so to speak, and energy to your life. Maybe you like to hunt. You like to fish. You like to go out and bird watch. Anything you want to do that makes you happy and makes you feel like you are living your life in a way that will keep you filled up with joy and happiness rather than living in that misery, it is okay to pursue those things. And that list of things I just listed out, none of those things make you weak. None of those things mean you stop caring about the bad things that happen in your life. None of those things on that list mean that you don't remember all the hardships you've been through. And I think one of the really interesting things is that sometimes we feel that way. We say, if I forget this one thing or I move on quickly, I'm going to forget about that. And if you've been through anything difficult in your life, you know it's pretty hard to forget about things that are sad and that impact us in big ways. It's pretty difficult to forget about things that leave us feeling like we have lost something big, whether it's death of a loved one or loss of a relationship or moving away from a place we really loved, losing a friendship. All those things, we will remember them. Even if you're in the best mood right now, one thing that reminds you of that, I promise you can go right back and recall it and remember how you felt. I've been doing a lot of work lately, kind of talking and designing a talk about the day my grandfather died and all the feelings about that. And I've done a podcast episode about that as well. It's been more than 20 years. I have moved on. I have forgiven myself for what happened. I am a pretty happy person. I'm happy a lot. I smile. I'm silly with my kids. I sing songs for no reason in the kitchen while I do dishes and cook. I dance around, not well, but I do while listening to music. All those things, I'm a pretty happy person. If you ask me to remember that, I can go right back there instantly, and I promise you I have not forgotten the situation. And it's not disrespectful to my grandfather or to me or to the situation or anybody else in my family that I've moved on. It doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that I found ways to heal. And if I was still hanging on to it after 20 years, like that would be some serious misery and suffering that I was just staying in for no apparent reason. But unfortunately, I think that happens sometimes. I think people are like, well, I'm going to be miserable forever. Family feuds, right? You get in an argument with your family members and you start to hold a grudge. This is one reason I don't believe in grudges. Holding a grudge will suck every last bit of joy out of your day, even if the joy is so abundant that other people could like swat it out of the air with their hands. And other people could look at you and be like, oh, my God, you're having the best day. Look at you. You're crushing it. Amazing job, beautiful house, beautiful family, wonderful friends, all these things, a great place to live. Like you're crushing it. You're killing it. And those people are like, well, yeah, but I'm still mad at my sister because I'm really angry at her. Again, You can be mad at your sister or your brother or your siblings. You can be frustrated with your parents or your siblings or your coworkers or even your kids when they get older or younger. But the idea is to not stay there forever, because the situation will present itself at some point in time. It's our job to work through it, find ways to get through it. And then once we do, we can remember that was part of our life, but we don't have to let that rewrite our story every single day. And as we close, you guys, you can do hard things, and you can carry huge responsibilities, and you can have great losses in your life, but you can also still show up for people. You can also still be there for people. You can be there for people, other people as well as yourselves, but you don't owe that suffering to anybody. You can go through all those different things and all those different emotions: loss of a loved one, loss of love, difficult day, job ending, job starting, difficult relationships, parents, kids, whatever dynamic you are looking at, and whatever the scope of your frustration or your suffering or your upset is at any given moment or any given point in time, you don't have to stay there forever. You don't have to stay there for the rest of your life or even for any longer than you feel like you need to. If you are ready and able to move on, go ahead and do that. Don't look to the other people in the situation for cues of, oh, should I still be angry? Should I still be upset? Should I still be sad? What should I do? It's your life. You go ahead and live it the way that makes you feel the best and that makes you feel like you are moving forward in the time and space that is comfortable for you. Live your life the way you want to do it. Don't take all of your cues from other people. And that's not to say, like, don't take advice from your best friends and don't listen to other people when they offer you guidance, especially if they're your mentors or your loved ones or your good friends. We can still do that. But we can still do that while maintaining our own trajectory and our own life and finding the things that truly make us happy and don't make us sit around in that suffering mentality any longer than we need to. Because your suffering is not a debt you have to keep paying. It doesn't need to always be there. You can pay off a car, you can pay off a house, you can pay off a mortgage, you can also pay off your misery and your sadness, right? Your suffering doesn't have to exist forever. You are allowed to heal, you are allowed to grow, and you're allowed to pursue the life that you were meant to live. And if the hardest season of your life has passed, don't feel guilty about stepping into the new one. The people who truly love you don't want your pain as proof of your loyalty. They want your life, they want your laughter, they want your smiles, they want your good ideas, they want your joy, and they want your peace, period. And you should want that for yourself also. You should want to wake up in the morning with purpose and something to look forward to and something to keep you happy and focused on and something to really make you feel like you are living in a way that you feel good about and that makes you feel happy and like you have completed some good things along the way. You don't have to live in the past. You don't have to stay in the angry and the bitter for any longer than you need to. Difficult things will happen in your life. Loss will happen. Really hardships will happen. Really long things will come to an end. Long duration relationships, long duration places that you lived will come to an end. And yes, it's okay to figure out it takes a while to move through those things. But once the while is over, go ahead and keep walking forward. My friends, no matter where you are today, I want to thank you for the time and for listening to me and for joining me on this podcast. Please follow along on the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. Go ahead and subscribe to it as well. You'll get little alerts that let you know when a new episode is dropped. If you need to follow me on social media because you don't already, I am at Todd W. Hiller on TikTok as well as Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you're on that platform at all. If you need a speaker for an event, let me know. If you need another podcast episode to listen to, go ahead and scroll back through. I've got lots of them for you. And if nothing else, please just take away from today. You can be happy. You don't need someone else's permission to do so. I hope you have the best day.
Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.